Namaskar. There is a story of a king who had a very loyal servant. And no matter what task the king gave to his servant would say, "Yes, Majesty, right away, I will do it, no problem." In fact, he was such a perfect servant that he even had some ego about how good he was. And the king somehow felt that, he should bring down this ego a little bit. And so he called his servant and he said, "I have a task for you." He said, "Yes, Majesty, right away, Majesty, what is it?" And he said, "I want you to go and obtain for me a magical ring. This ring, it has the power to give hope and inspiration in times of trouble, and it has power also to bring humility in the times of success." And the servant, without batting an eyelid, said, "Yes, Majesty, of course, Majesty, right away." He said, "Well, I just want to have it here by the time we have the Harvest Moon Festival." And the king smugly sat back thinking, okay, let's see how he'll deal with this one, because he knew very well that such a ring did not exist. Meanwhile, his trusted, loyal, humble servant went out determined to find this ring. He must find this ring. So he started going through the village and asked everybody, "Where can I find this ring?" He described the ring to them. And they're like, "Never heard of such a ring. I don't know if such a thing exists." No, it must exist. The king asked me to get it. And so he continued. And he searched far and wide all over the land looking for this magical ring. And days were passing, and the Harvest Moon Festival was coming closer, and he'd found no ring. Now, he had never, ever failed to fulfill a wish of his king before. And he couldn't even imagine or tolerate the idea that he wouldn't be successful. He had to find this ring. And so he continued searching everywhere, asking everyone. Still, no result. The next day was to be the harvest moon, and he still hadn't found the ring. And he was walking so dejectedly towards the palace. He couldn't imagine how he could face this failure. And his head was down, and he didn't notice when he bumped into an elderly man in front of him. And the elderly man said, "Hey, why don't you look where you're going? What's wrong with you? What's wrong? You seem quite down." And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't notice you." He said, "I was just so absorbed in this problem that I have." And he said, "Well, tell me, what is it?" He said, "Well, I was given the task to find this magical ring, and I've looked everywhere and I can't find it." And he said, "Well, what kind of magical ring?" "The king asked me to find a ring which would bestow hope in troubled times and humility in times of success." The elderly man just looked at him and smiled and said, "Oh, that's not a problem. I can help you. I can give you such a ring." And he said, "Really? You can?" And so the man simply pulled out of his pocket a simple piece of wood and a carving knife, and he began whittling away and creating a ring. And now, the servant was a bit suspicious that some simple little wooden ring was going to truly be magical. And he finished carving it, and he carefully was carving and inscribing something on it. And then he gifted that ring to the servant. The servant looked at it, and his eyes lit up. "Thank you so much. How can I ever repay you?" And then he went to the castle. Meanwhile, the king was thinking, "Ha ha ha ha. I wonder what my servant is up to now. How he will have been humbled by this experience." And he's kind of chuckling to himself, when to his surprise, his servant appears and he says, "Oh, so how did it go? Were you able to find the ring?" And his servant said, "Yes, Your Majesty, yes, I was able to obtain the ring for you." Now, the king was really curious. You found it?" And he said, "Yes, I found it." And so he bestowed the ring to the king, and the king took it, and he looked at it, and he read the inscription, and then he smiled, and he said, "Yes, you have been successful." The carving on that simple wooden ring said, "This too shall pass. This too shall pass." Everything passes. In moments of joy, those moments will pass. And moments of sorrow and troubles, they will pass. And this helps to create equanimity, for the mind to remain in samatha bhava, in the state of mental equilibrium, not to be disturbed too much by external circumstances going on around it. To be able to maintain that faith, more positive way of looking at it is everything will happen for the best. Everything will get better. You know, there's an expression also from the Tao Te Ching, even the heavens cannot reign forever. The rains stop. The sun cannot always shine every day. The clouds will come. So what the heavens and what the sun are unable to do, you know, how much more can we expect also of ourselves? No, things will not always be perfect. Things will not always shine. And also things will not always be sad and tragic. Life is never over. The story keeps going on. You know, I think sometimes like when you watch a comedy or a tragedy, it's only a comedy or a tragedy depending on where you decide arbitrarily to end the story as a storyteller. But real life is not like that. Real life keeps going on. And even after sometimes the most tragic things that you think you will not be able to survive or go past, life flows onward. Good times return. The light returns again. It always does. And those moments also allow us to learn to trust and feel grace. And grace in the yogic concept isn't passive. It's not just something you just passively receive. The word for grace is kripa. It's composed of two words, kri, which is the action word. It means do. And pa is the open word. It's receive. So you do your effort. And then pa, you receive the grace. You do the best you can. You do everything in your power. That's all that you can do. What more can anybody ask? We do our best. We try with all of our effort. But then when our capacity is exhausted, then we must let go and surrender. And then the grace comes and completes. I had experience once in Italy. I'd organized a big concert inside of a retreat that I'd organized for artists. And we had all these wonderful artists gathered to perform. And I'd skipped dinner. I was late to dinner because I was organizing all of these lights and the sound system and the entrance so that, you know, when the public came, everything was set. We had all the candles ready. And at last, everything was prepared. I went down for dinner. And while I was getting my food, all of a sudden, all the electricity goes out in the whole house. And I hear my colleague, one of the monks, and he's like, with a flashlight, looking at the circuit board, I think, said, "Oh my God, none of them are down. That means that something maybe melted in the wires inside of the house." I mean, if it's just a circuit down, you can just turn it up and things come back on. I realized, oh my God, we put way too many lights for the capacity of this electricity. And it's Saturday, and it's evening, and it's Italy, and people don't work after 6 o'clock, whatever, in Italy, especially on a Saturday night. And so this is something that probably won't be resolved until Monday. And all the guests are coming in a half an hour. So I went outside. There was a stone circle. I just sat there and I did my surrender process. I'm like, okay, I've done everything in my power. I have no idea how this can be solved. I'm just letting go. It's up to you. And then I went upstairs curious, with curiosity in my mind, to see how this was going to be solved, because I didn't know what to do. To this day, I am sure that there's a scientific, logical explanation for what happened. But when I arrived upstairs and everybody is gathered there, the guests have come, the artists are trying, there's just candles on, so there's no lights, and they're trying to play acoustic. And all of a sudden, the lights come on. I was so surprised. It was a complete miracle of grace for me. I ran quickly and unplugged some of the really hot lights, and the concert went on and everything was fine. But that was such an experience of Kripa for me. I'd done my best, all I could, and then the rest came from grace. So life gives us these ups and downs, these challenges, moments of great obstacle, moments of surprising, miraculous grace. And that gives so much joy to life. I talked about another time, how one of my wise colleagues, one of my wise brother monks said, however high up you go, again you will go down. And however down you go, again you'll go up. I forgot to add another detail that made that story even better, which was that he said, however, if you look over the long term, this is not a zero-sum game. It's not like you go up and then you go down and you didn't go, all the progress is gone. It's like there's an up and there's a down, and there's an up and there's a down, and there's an up and there's a down. But if you look over time, in the balance, if you keep going, if you don't give up, there is a progress in time. You see that progress in time. It's not only up and down, going back down to the starting point. And so if you look back over years, you'll see that now when you go down, you don't go down to the same level you were going down before. And when you go up, every time you're going up higher than the last time that you went high. So it's worth it. This too will pass. Whatever you're going through, whether you're in a moment of bliss or you're in a moment of struggle and difficulty, you can be sure that it will pass, but that there is also an upward trend. And there's a benevolence guiding you to make progress through all of this and to experience grace, because that's, I think, the essence of spirituality, is to enter into the flow of grace. And to know that that grace is far greater than our own small ego and how it wants things to happen. And so trusting that things do get better and happen for welfare. Thank you. Looking forward to your comments, and I hope you will subscribe. Namaskar.